on a Thursday, and my name is Elize Hattin, the Smart Hub Business Manager, and it's my absolute pleasure to welcome you to today's HubLive. On the couch with me, I have the incredible Simon Lever. Hello, Simon. How are you?
I'm fantastic today.
Are you fantastic?
I'm not fighting fires, so we're in here in the air conditioning, so we're fine.
I know. How terrible is the fire situation? Oh my goodness.
So yes, it's quite a bit out there, and a lot of the businesses are either suffering or they've got people away trying to look after their places, which also comes into how you build your teams, which also feeds into it too, because if you've got people that have to be away to look after their houses, it's very important that businesses understand that. And even one of the businesses I support, they've got 3 people at home now.
Oh my goodness.
On watch, waiting just in case they have to pull their pets and their belongings out. So.
Oh my goodness, yeah. The one thing that I can say about Australia, which is phenomenal, is that in time of crisis, we pull together.
Yes.
It's incredible. I've never seen communities support each other like in times of crisis, and just the generosity and the flexibility and the helpfulness of communities. When you had cyclones, the fire, I remember there was fire when we first came here in 2011, 10, 11. Yeah, and the same thing, the cyclone, same thing, and even now the same thing. But as a business owner, you still have a business to run, so it's a tricky thing, right?
And it's being able to weigh all that up and work out, and then be able to talk to the people and work out, who has to be there and who doesn't, who's in the raw firefighting, and their obligations with that. And so there's a whole lot of processes around that, and businesses just need to know those things and understand them.
Absolutely. Now, just before we came on live, you said something, and that's that the world is changing.
Absolutely.
So that kind of brings me to what I always say at the beginning of our Hub Lives. Why are we doing these Hub Lives in the first place? And the reason for that is because we really realize and understand that the world is changing, and we'll be talking a little bit more about that later. And from the Smart Hub's perspective, and all of our community, of which you're such an integral part as one of our mentors, from the Smart Hub's perspective, we really want to encourage our business community to see the opportunities and the problems that this change is creating, and adopt technology and modern best business practice. Because let's be honest, business is not the same as it was even 15 years ago. The game has fundamentally changed. The game is changing due to globalization, and what I mean by that is, we're really becoming kind of a one world. People are working for Australians in the Philippines and in the US. Like, globalization is a big issue, and technology. So our customers' behavior is changing because everybody is on their phone. So that's changing the way in which we work and live, and it's changing definitely the nature of business. So at the Smart Hub, we like to encourage people to adopt technology and best business practice to capitalize on the opportunity that this change creates, but also to hedge against the problems and the risk that this change creates. And that's why you're here today, sir. We're going to do that a little bit more. And we're going to do that in our trustee system, really in relation to talking about team. Yeah. So tell me first, Simon, why are you good to talk about team? Like, why are you knowledgeable about team? Well, I know, but I'd like to share that with everyone. Hey, Tony, nice to see you.
I suppose that I've been in quite a few teams in my career in different parts of the world. And that's every dynamic changes on where you are, what era you're in, and everything like that. So it's very important you actually understand those sort of concepts. And I suppose I've been fortunate enough to actually work right throughout the Pacific in different roles, different industries, represent different clients at the same time. So you get to understand that there is not one fit. It is so different. If you're talking to that entrepreneur who's still in the garage at home, coming up with this great concept and making it happen, and they need a team of 3 or 4 to all be in the garage or meet at the coffee club, so to speak.
Or in the Smart Hub.
Yeah, and all
putting it out there.
all those things come into different parts of it, and actually, and I've been lucky enough to actually be involved with all of those and the Smart Hub. since it's first started.
Yeah, absolutely. The reason why I think you're so qualified to be on the couch with team is because not only are you the leader of a team, you've been in leadership positions for a long time, and so you've been great at bringing teams together, but you're also part of a team. You're definitely part of our Smart Hub team, and you're also part of community teams across Rockhampton. So I know that you're super, super, super well positioned to talk to us today about what it means to put teams together. Now, you use that word entrepreneur.
Yes.
Now, what I'm finding is in the Australian context, the kind of definition that most people would put to the word entrepreneur is someone who's already made it, someone who's a successful person in business. But when we use the word entrepreneur, what we mean is just anyone who's building a profitable business or who's in the process of building a profitable business,
Correct.
right? So as you mentioned, it can be someone from, you could be working in your garage to you could be running a multi-million-dollar enterprise and everything in between.
Correct. So I mean, there's a lot of people that even the entrepreneur starts with an idea.
Yes.
And that's where it starts.
Yeah.
And then when you have that idea, you need to surround yourself by like-minded people to actually encourage you, give you that wealth, and to say, oh, look out for this, or go from there. And that is the beginning of building a team. And of course, that's why the Smart Hub was first brought up, is get those like-minded people together so that we could all share experiences, share ideas, look out for the traps, and also watch it, hey, there's a good avenue, go this way because it's really great. And that's why this Smart Hub is so important, especially in central Queensland. We've got a lot, I mean, we hear great ideas here all the time, having a cup of coffee. And then how we actually go to the next stage from that by building the teams. And when you go to build a team, it's got to be different types of people. They've got to be the right sort of fit when you're at that young stage. As you get bigger, that dynamic changes.
Okay, so let's talk about the different phases. So let's start with, when we say the word team, what do we mean? Do we mean 2 employees, 1 employee, you and 1 employee, that's a team? Like, when can we say we're a team?
Okay, you can be just one person as a team.
Yeah.
Because you can have the one person as an idea, can be sitting somewhere in the Smart Hub.
In the Smart Hub, for example.
As an individual with your idea, and then you will be reaching out to another supplier to help you do something while you're building this up. That is the definition of a team.
So even though that person isn't employed by you, that doesn't mean that they're not in your team. They are still in your team.
They're an intricate part of your process to grow.
So when
to
we
build
say
wealth.
team, to build wealth, I love that. So when we say team, we also mean not only your employees, but your suppliers and your mentors and your accountant and your lawyer. And Daniel and I did a HubLive a couple of weeks ago about the 5 people that you really need to get on your team, but you won't necessarily employ, like accountant, lawyer, insurance broker, etc.
You can call them whatever you want, stakeholders.
Yeah.
Basically, they are a stakeholder in your business to help you succeed on what you need to go for. So you set your goal, and they can be all different parts of people around that spoke of your goals.
Okay, awesome. So let's make it more specific about when you're building your actual in-house team. So if someone has an idea or they're starting out in business, when do they know, when is the time that you should start building that team? And talk to us about the process. How do we do that? What should we do?
Well, where do you start with that one? There's so many different
variables.
Oh.
I know, just generalise a little.
Okay, so when you've got at least 3 or 4 people working on the same project together, you're side by side. And the beauty of today's technology, you can have someone sitting in Singapore, someone in Belgium, and you can be all talking at the same time to build the same project. But it's still a team. So you still got to have the same values. You've got to be able to set the same goals to say, this is where we need to be this month or this 6-month period. This is what we need to be doing. You need to have the right fit. So you need to build the right like-minded people to actually work together when you're so young.
I love that. So can I quickly interrupt?
Yeah.
You say the word values.
Yep.
So we can also use the word culture in that. Same culture, same values, same rules of behaviour.
Yep.
Yep. So whose job is it to establish the values and the goal? Who should be responsible for doing that?
Basically, you have to have a leader basically at the top. And that person has to then be the person who brings the team together and leads it. Not drives it, but leads it as one.
Oh, what's the difference between driving a team and leading a team as one?
Okay, so some people have heard the analogy where you're either a leader or a boss.
Yes.
Okay, so the boss will sit there and dictate to you what you got to do, micromanage. Where's this? Bang, bang, bang. Where a leader will come along and say, "Hey, this is where we're going. We want you all on board. This is the direction we need to go, and this is how do you think we can get there?" They will then support those people, say, "These are the values. Do we all agree?" Yes, we then sign off on that, and then we stick to it. Because when everything goes a bit skew, if we can bring everyone, hey, hang on, these are the values that we agreed upon at the beginning. Do we need to reevaluate that as a group, or are you just, okay, we're realigned? Okay, great. We're a boss that just want to belt you and do all that sort of stuff, which is totally dysfunctional.
Yeah.
It totally ruins you. Then have natural nutrition, people want to leave, and that could be even a group of a business with 45 people in it. Once you start that boss culture, which is the very old style, you'll have natural nutrition with people, and you can't keep a business sustained that way.
I think self-awareness is one of the most fundamental skills in life, but especially in business. And I wonder if we can use that as a trigger and almost put it out as a challenge out there. If you own a business and people are leaving your team without you intending on them leaving the team, maybe that's the trigger for a bit of self-evaluation and just asking yourself the question whether, are you behaving too much like a boss and not enough like a leader? And how can you adjust your own behavior as the owner or manager of a business or the entrepreneur? How can you adjust your own behavior, and how can you actually learn better leadership skills? One of the resources I love to share is a book by John Maxwell, which is called The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. There are actually, he has a workbook. He's got a reading book, but he's got a workbook available as well. And I absolutely advocate that book as a tool to be able to bring up your own leadership skills.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's a really nice tool because you can do that on your own, and you reach out to your network to get feedback about your leadership skills. But it helps you reflect, essentially.
Leadership is not a natural thing. It's actually a learnt skill.
It is a learned skill.
And
Anyone can learn it.
And there's, I have this debate with people all the time when they say it's common sense. What is common sense? The definition of common sense is actually what you have learnt, therefore it becomes common.
Yeah.
So
if you learned the wrong thing, it's not common sense.
That's it. And the thing is that what you might think is common, another person won't.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing for a leader or someone in charge of a team, the biggest asset they need to do is the ability to listen. Not talk over people. Go up to someone and have a conversation and listen to them through the entire. Let them keep going, and then sit back, and then you can interject after and say, well, okay, I probably disagree with that, or okay, take it on board. Didn't realise that, because that's where the self-reflection comes in, as you said. Why are people leaving me? Why are they leaving the business? You've got to then ask the question and have a look. It is very hard at the moment throughout central Queensland to actually recruit, and retain people.
How come?
There's a varied reasons at the moment. We've got different parts of the business cycle booming. So we've got the resource sector coming back into line in some places. For one client at the moment, I'm out there physically trying to recruit fitters. 2 months, can't get them.
Wow.
Because the price point, which they have to pay their people in town to actually sustain their business to make a profit, can't match what they're offering outside. So of course, people see the vision if they want to go out there. They're not looking at the work-life balance. They're not looking at being home each day.
Yeah,
and
seeing the dollars.
And as a business, you have to sit back and reflect on that. And to be a proper leader, you need to listen to your staff. What can you actually do to retain them? What else can we do to give them incentive? Now, that's not always cash.
Let's talk about that. So once you have a team and you want to incentivize them, or you need to incentivize them, what incentives have you seen work in the workplace? What do people respond to? And also, how do you talk about these incentives to make the team perform well?
Oh, look, incentives are sometimes a very dangerous area to go into.
Yeah.
Because then becomes expected.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And then people think it's just the norm now. Well, we'll go here, this is what we're going to get.
Yeah.
So it's the simple little things like probably having a newspaper sitting in there so people can read it when they're having smoko, or having a different style of coffee. So it's a little bit of expenditure for the business, but it goes a long way with the people. So they know that we come here, we have decent cups of tea, coffee or something like that. We have a barbecue once a month where we have a session where we actually review how the whole business has been going for the last month. So we say, well, productivity's down or up. What else can we do to fix this? Now, I always reflect on that back to a job when I used to be a structures superintendent, and when we were building a bridge down near Taree. And we're in a waterway in the Manning River where there's a lot of oysters. And on top of what we call a pier cap, where we had to sit the bridge on top, we had to put oil. So when you push the bridge out over the water each time, the oil would then stain the top or fall in the water. If it fell in the water, there'd be about a $10 million lawsuit against us.
Oh.
Because of the oysters would then be damaged.
Yeah.
And of course the flow on. So
Yeah.
we sat there, we had all these processes in place. The engineers thought about all these great things which cost time, money, which then was put back to the taxpayer. And then one day we had a barbecue on a Saturday and we said, come on fellas, anyone got any ideas whatsoever? You know, this is an issue we've got. And it was quite ironic that the bloke who was actually cooking the barbecue, we had a nameless brand can of oil which we used to just spray on the barbecue instead of pouring oil onto it. And he said, why don't we just use this? Out of that simple little task, and someone thinking they were silly,
Yeah.
we saved $50,000 in cost immediately, got rid of the risk of anything falling in the water if it was contained, got rid of manual handling issues, just because we sat down and had a conversation.
That's amazing.
So the team got built up again. They were, wow, away we go again. And we had about 60 people, and you could see the wave go, just because we had that talk. And the incentive was to have a barbecue to have an idea on what we can do.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. And then you actually took that idea and on board and implemented it essentially.
Yep.
Love it. Talita and Peter, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm on the couch with the incredible Mr. Simon Lever. We are talking team. Literally, we're talking about what the difference is between a boss and a leader. We're talking about how to recruit a team, when to know that you need a team, and currently, or that's what we've spoken about before, and now we're talking about how to incentivize a team. So you're saying it's in the little things, it's in the day-to-day little things that the business provides to make your team members' lives a little bit nicer.
Correct, yeah, because everyone used to think that, you know, money was always the key.
Yeah.
And when you actually, part of a recruitment process is that you've got the exit process, which is at the end when someone actually leaves. And when you actually sit down and ask them, what were the things? And some of the things that you talk about is we're not actually worried about the money anymore. We're not leaving because of the money. We either didn't like the boss, not the leader, didn't like the boss.
Yeah.
And the conditions weren't as favourable. We had to work in hot climates, or we didn't do this, or they didn't understand when we had a family issue or something like that. So again, it comes back to the leaders actually understanding, communicating and listening to what they are so they can provide the support and encouragement and help at the same time. It is so important that leaders in the business look at it. So getting that little Visa card for $50, wahoo, wahoo, not everybody sees that as the main incentive.
Yeah, understood.
Because that is the trap a lot of businesses in the past have fallen into. We'll throw money at our employees and it doesn't always work.
Yeah, understood. So it's the working conditions that we need to be mindful of. And I think we also need to be a bit human and understand that people have lives and families, and if we can be flexible with each other, if you're flexible with your team, they'll be flexible with you.
Look at your
Grace.
Look at your targets.
Yeah.
You know, as we said before, you know, set your goals.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what workplace you're in, you've got to have a goal.
Absolutely.
Where is it going to be? How's it going to sit? How are we going to measure it? How are we going to achieve it? And when we get there, have a mini celebration.
Nice.
Yeah, it could be a barbecue or a cake today. We're going to do this. It's the little things at the end of the day that really, and of course, if the business has really gone well, then you have your bonus structures and stuff like that, which we reward people in the right way for the effort they've actually put in.
Absolutely.
Not the perceived, but the actual effort.
Yeah, yeah, and the results that are achieved.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Okay, so I know that you do work with recruitment.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about just the how-tos of thinking about roles, how to write ads, how to ensure that you get good candidates that apply, how to do interviews. How do we actually go through the practical things, and what tools, technology tools, do you use?
Okay, so again, that world has totally changed. Back in the old days, you had to do this big CV, send it in, sit in front of a whole big panel to be interviewed. You couldn't do anything else bar that. These days we have technology where you can find an ad, you can then upload your CV or your resume into the electronic version. What happens then is that a machine then reads that, picks out keywords, and then it then transitions to a shortlist just from that.
Okay, I just want to pause you there. So no longer do human beings look necessarily at your first uploaded resume. That's being done by AI, a computer, essentially.
Correct. It will shortlist, it will do everything like that.
And it looks for keywords in your resume.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it totally
no longer looks at your picture and the border that you put around. No.
These days you don't really put photos on for privacy and discrimination. So you don't put a photo on a CV anymore.
See, that's different.
Unless it is a specific requirement for a security reason.
Yeah.
But normally you don't.
Okay.
We advise our people that come through our company, don't supply a photo because it just opens up a whole lot of different perspectives.
So how do we ensure that we have if we're looking at this from the employee's perspective, so I want to apply for jobs,
Yep.
How do I know what keywords to include in my resume?
Okay, so what you need to be able to do is firstly look at the actual ad. Mm-hmm. Okay, and you need to be able to adjust your CV or your resume constantly per job role. Because what you need to do is look at the keywords they're actually looking in the ad, and then make sure you actually cover it. You need to have, basically where you've been for how long and what your role was. So what you're actually doing and what achievements. Okay, so when I first started looking at writing my own CV many years ago, I couldn't get past 15 pages for everything that I've sort of done. And then these days, if you go more than past 3 pages, people want to go, okay, and that's why the machines have taken it, because you might place an ad somewhere, you might have 250 people actually apply. And all of a sudden, who's going to sit there and go through each one? So that's why the keywords are important in your resume to make sure that you're actually addressing the criteria for that role.
Okay, so let's flip it over. So I'm the employer, and I'm going to write the ad and write the criteria for the role to establish what the keywords are. How do I know which criteria to include or which keywords to look for?
Okay, so this comes back to the actual company,
Yeah,
their ethics,
yeah,
their vision and what they want to do. It's
Right.
very important.
yes.
Then you actually got to work out, do you want a graduate or do you want someone with 10 years experience?
Right.
And what are they actually doing? So you've got to look at the role, the activity, and put keywords which are also up to date with the latest jargon and technical. If there is a specific qualification they need, you need to also put that in there. So there is quite an art in writing ads. I don't do them within my organisation. I have someone else who's been doing that for 25 years does that because it's a very tricky area.
It's really interesting. It's almost like marketing, but on a very different level.
Oh, look,
Yeah.
it is. These days it is.
Yeah.
And it totally changes on the calibre of person you're trying to get. So if you're trying to get an executive to come in and lead a team of 70 people to drive an outcome within a year, it is a totally different job requirement, because you will say in that job requirement they have to have outcomes. They've got to prove them. Instead of a manager who's going to sit there for 10 years. So it all comes down, and half the time that when we actually get someone ring us up and say, can you help us recruit? And so we go and sit with them and say, okay, what is your business? What is the type of person you want, and where can you see them going? Is it short term? Because in the advert you need to say that, so that you get the right people. You don't have people thinking that I want to do this. I mean, that who are going to come in for a 10-year life. That's what they think they're going to be. But I'm only here for 2 years, because these days, the younger generation coming out of school and university are a totally different type of employee.
Yeah, so what are they like? What's that new generation like?
See, well,
we're generalising, just by the way.
Yeah, we are. So basically what they're coming in, they want to come into a business, they want to be able to do an activity for a while. Some of them will stay for 3 or 5 years, but most of them want to stay for 2 years, achieve what they've set out to do. They don't want the old school of sitting down each year and go, okay, we're doing a job performance. They want to be knowing that each month or every 2 months, hey, you've achieved what you've done. It's totally different. Again, going away from the boss back to the leader, we have to adapt to be out with the times on how to treat staff. So they want to be able to see it. They're right into social media and things like that. You've got to engage them with that. You've got to acknowledge they can do it, but you've also got to set boundaries and rules around it. Social media, you can't talk about the business and stuff like that. It's got to be in a positive way, because you can actually lose business or contracts pretty quickly.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a lot of give and take and how to manage that. There's no golden rule.
Yeah, I had a business just recently around the social media. They found they had to turn the Wi-Fi off in the bathroom so that their staff couldn't access social media while going to the bathroom, and it helped productivity. So yeah, you do have to make, and hygiene. True, that's true. Hey Daniel, thank you so much for joining us. And today's HubLive, my guest is Mr. Simon Lever. I haven't said that you're from Cross Asia Pacific. We're halfway through, or almost to been talking for 25 minutes. I haven't mentioned your business name. So sorry about that, Simon.
No,
so Simon is talking to us about leadership and teams. He's been part of lead teams for a long time. He's been a leader for a very, very long time. He does that in his business, and also he does that as a consultant for other businesses. Yeah. So talking about putting ads together to get teams, to hire employees, but also spoke about when you're an employee, how do you ensure that you have the right keywords in your resume? So what else do we need to consider in putting our teams together to help us grow our businesses?
Well, you've got to actually think about the right fit is the biggest thing, the right culture that the people you want to bring in.
So how do you tell though? Because you put an ad out there and then you get 100 people apply for the position, then the robot goes, or the computer goes through and looks at the keywords, and then you might shortlist 10, right? Or might not even shortlist 10, you might shortlist 5. I think interviewing more people is better, but I do understand time is a problem. So then you have your shortlist. Then how do you manage the process where you match the individual to the culture of the business?
That is, that's the tricky bit.
It is tricky.
And that's when you get the good consultants who actually have to understand the business and the people, because we're more or less a boutique recruiter. We don't go out there en masse. We actually go to small businesses, help them find key people to help them. So when you actually get that person, you need to help fill the void within the business. So you might have 3 or 4 people that are fit for the job, but they might not fit that team dynamic. And that is very important, because if you have people going in saying, oh, this is not for me, and leaving, you've got that
it's
rotation.
usually costly.
Not just the cost. Most people don't see the other cost, and that is the morale. And also the customers on the other end saying, hey, we're dealing with someone else. What's going on in this business? Because they've got a rotation.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
that is a big thing that people don't take into account, that they need to. So it's very hard. So at the end of the day, someone still has to read CV or resume. We need to assess it. You then have a phone interview, because I tell people that when we write CVs for them, we say, the CV won't get you the job. It actually gets you the interview.
Yeah.
It's up to you then to sell yourself to the new employer that you are the best candidate for that role.
Love it. So from the employer's perspective, from the entrepreneur's perspective, if we're recruiting and we've gotten the shortlist done and now we're interviewing, what are your favorite interview questions?
Ooh.
Do you have a couple of standard ones that you go to all the time, or it depends on the position?
Oh, the first one is always, what made you apply for this role? Because you want to actually get why they see themselves in this position. When you actually ask that question, you can actually gauge very quickly whether the person is just applying it to try and get a job, or they have a passion. So when you've got entrepreneurs, they need people who've got passion and drive. Then we ask the question, what do you know about this company? That is another key one where you actually, if someone's done their homework to actually find out a bit about the business, they've shown a huge interest in me, so they've gone up in our scale to keep asking questions. We start asking more leading questions so they can answer a lot more freely, and if they shut down, you then give them closed questions, which you're looking for simple answers, which speeds up the process pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're the main ones up front. What made you apply for this? What can you tell us about the business? And if they can't tell you anything about it, you say why they want to go into this entrepreneur's business, because they're small, because they need dynamic people. They want people who want to be there, that know the value, want to be a part of the value. Bigger companies also hold that very dearly, but it's very hard because if you have a high turnover or you have a huge project, I've got to fulfill 60 positions now. How can you do that? And in this region, there's a lot of unemployment, but when you actually put an ad up, you're still not getting the people.
It's a very interesting kind of
And
dynamic
there's
and dichotomy.
different trades at the moment that we just can't fill. I mean, mechanical fitters is one, chefs are another one. Chefs are very, they move around a lot, and they tend to move around Australia or actually around the world with that trade.
Interesting, very, very interesting. So, okay, so once we've built our team, so now we have a group of people that we're leading. As the entrepreneur, you're the leader. Do you have any tips on how to manage the team?
One is not to definitely not to micromanage. You need to set your goals up front. You need to actually focus on the roles. What is this person doing and what is their role? Make sure those roles are very clear. Now, we all talk about position descriptions, PDs.
Yeah.
And that is basically a short document telling you exactly what's expected of you, what your accountabilities are, whether you've got a spend requirement where you can actually buy something or raise a purchase order or promise something. And that is basically a very legal document under Fair Work. They say you need to have that as a position description to actually allow people to know what their role is and what they can be doing.
Yeah.
That is very important.
Yeah.
Then you've got to be able to then move around them and then support those people around those goals. You need to have clarity around that. And the best way to get clarity about that, even if you say, okay, this week we've got a high priority, we need to get this out, this team needs to do this. As a leader, you would ask them, what is the definition? What do we need to do by Friday? And if they can repeat it back to you, you understood it. Because what I've found in different parts of the world, you can sit there and say, this is what we need to do. Everyone understand? And as they're walking away, they say, what did he say? What does he mean? So as a proper leader, you need to get rid of that confusion and having the right people in the business who go just, hey, the culture's right. I put my hand up. I don't understand what's it mean. And again, we're trying to find those people to fit into the business as an entrepreneur.
So I think one of the biggest skills, and Courtney and I had a bit of a talk about this on the weekend actually when we were here for GovHack, about delegation. So delegation is something that's pretty challenging for some people to learn. Well, almost for everyone really, let's be honest. Delegation is a skill. It's a tricky one. There's an actual process involved with delegating well. And there's also an emotional side to delegating well. Can you talk to us a little bit about delegation and how to delegate well, whether your team is in-house, whether they're stakeholders, whether they're workers abroad? How do you delegate tasks?
Look, most small businesses struggle with that.
Yes.
Because it's their baby. And
It
all of a
is,
sudden,
yes.
when you delegate something properly, you need to be hands off. You need to be able to say, please look after this, and then step back.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't, then they start micromanaging, and then that person has been delegated the task, say, well, what am I doing the task for? Well, they're still checking me every 5 minutes, there's no point. And everything collapses. So to be able to delegate an activity, you need to then communicate that. So the rest of the team knows that I've now delegated Bruce or Fiona into these positions where they are now in charge of this. So stop coming to me. Please go to them, because that's going to create confusion, disrespect to certain people, and then we're not following the values of the organisation anymore. We have to understand. So when you actually understand, when you delegate something, usually you give it to them in writing and say, this is what the outcomes are, this is what you can do and what you're authorised to do. You're not authorised to go and talk to this government department or the bank or anything like that.
Yeah.
That's me.
Yeah.
Come to me with that, then I can do that.
Yeah.
But the delegation is so hard, and I see it every day when I go into a business, that people, when they say, oh, okay, what do you do? What's your position? Oh, this is what I do. Oh, so do you do that? Oh, no, they come and check all the time. Okay, how do you feel about that? Let's not go there. And of course, then you've got the culture already is that people don't want to work as a team, which breaks down. So if you're going to delegate people to do a role, allow them to succeed. And if they start to not be able to succeed, you need to be able to come in, support them, and say, what's the issue? How can I help? Then stand back again once you've helped them. If they need training, offer them support. Don't crucify them because you've given them a task they have not been able to succeed to your level. Have you communicated that level properly? Have you articulated it in the way they actually stood? Have you asked them to tell you what they see their new role is and the outcomes?
I love that. Years ago, I heard a story of, I think it was a leadership tale actually. It was based on the US Army, something that they developed in how they delegate tasks. Now, when you're in a war situation, delegation takes on a whole new level of importance.
Yep. Life and death. Yep.
And life, the heavy consequences. And so what they found is at headquarters, the leaders used to plan out a mission, and they used to tell people exactly what they needed to do, task by task. Yep. Go do this, go to that building, go do this, go do this, go do this. But what often happened, and we all know that people who've made plans know that your plans are amazing until they have contact with the real world, because other people have other plans, and so your plans and their plans might, clash, and then the plans might get a bit, let's call it, interrupted or distorted. And so what they found, the US Army used to give people specific micromanaged instructions, and then things didn't always go very well. So they created this thing called the commander's intent. And at the top of any delegation instruction, so to speak, they said, this is the commander's intent. So the intent of what we're doing here is the goal, essentially, that we're trying to achieve is we're trying to, capture that building over there. And here's what we think you should do. But let's say that doesn't work out because the enemy does something in return that makes this impossible. Then use your own brain and think about what the intent is and just go and make the result happen, right? And that improved the outcomes incredibly. And I also am often reminded by what Tim Ferriss said, when you give someone responsibility, their intelligence doubles. Yep. So when you give them a task, you say, this is the intention, so this is the goal. You go and work out how to do that yourself.
Enable them.
Enable them. What do you need from me to help you do that? Then all of a sudden, it builds their own confidence. They're going to learn. If they make a mistake, it's no problem. Yep. As long as you don't keep making the same mistakes over and over again. Yep. Mistakes are cheap mistakes. It's really training. And that is the process of empowering your team. And it's also the process of growing your team and of developing the people in your team, which as you do that, then you'll be able to achieve greater and greater levels of success.
Absolutely.
So commander's intent.
Yep.
So with every delegation, say, the intention with this is, the goal that we're trying to achieve is blah, blah. You could even say, the reason why that's important is bigger picture, or tie it back to our ultimate goal, or this is what we're trying to prevent, or this is how we're trying to position ourselves. And so can you please go and make that happen? If they then say, what should I do? Then a question that I love asking is, what do you think you should do? How do you think you can go about doing this? And often that person will come up with far better ideas than I would ever.
Outside the square.
Exactly. Just like the barbecue example that you mentioned.
$6 can.
$6 can solution, amazing. And then our jobs as leaders is to ensure that the team member is supported and resourced. And if mistakes come up, then you don't go, I can't believe you made a mistake. You go, that's okay, we're in this together. How can we fix it? What did we learn? Move on. Yeah.
So one of the biggest things, is it comes back to listening.
Exactly.
You've got to listen to your team. Don't treat them as staff. They're a team.
Exactly.
Because the biggest asset to any business is its people.
I know.
Without your people, you don't have a business. So you've got to be able to respect that and be quite open with them. Tell them how the business is, celebrate the good parts of it. And when things get tight, discuss it with them. How can we do better? We've still got to achieve an outcome. We need to get X amount out the door at this stage. We need this many sales to survive. Has anyone got any ideas? And usually something will come from the floor.
Yeah.
And you go, never thought about that. Or you're telling me that doesn't work? Why hasn't anyone, or we've been telling someone for ages that doesn't work? Yeah. Okay, well, I didn't know as a decision maker. So the decision makers up top, the leaders need to come down. They need to walk around. They need to be out on the old terminal, on the coal face.
Yeah.
Talking to the people that are actually make the business what it is.
Yeah.
The leader doesn't. They steer the ship.
Yeah.
And if you've got 3 oars in the water on this side and it's starting to list and steer, and they just try and counteract that without actually understanding why it's listing to the side, the business will slowly go down.
Absolutely.
So you need to listen, work it, trust your team. And if they're not the right fit for your team and they're causing heartache, unfortunately, you remove them from the team.
Yeah, that's what I often say to people. You have 2 choices, the short pain or the long pain.
Yep.
You can do it quickly or you can do it slowly, up to you. And some people do still prefer the long pain because it's difficult to move people on if they're not a good fit.
Well, you've got to give them the opportunity. You've got to have the conversation.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have difficulty having that conversation.
It is hard. It is difficult.
It is. And then you've got to be able to have the conversation, but also understand the rules and the regulations around how you have that conversation. There's a lot of compliance around having that conversation.
Absolutely.
And you can't just go in there, and that's where the old bosses are getting themselves in a lot of trouble these days without being leaders, because they're not listening to following the process. They're actually going this, the next bit they're on bullying, harassment. There are all these things which they created the issue for themselves instead of following the process of what makes a good team. Yeah.
So if you do have an issue in your team that you need to resolve, just be mindful that Fair Work Australia has on their website, that's a really great resource for you to look at, and just to ensure that you're doing the right thing by your business, the right thing by your employee. And then also there are consultants like Asia Pacific, you can actually consult directly to help you resolve some of the issues, or if it's not resolvable, to follow the correct process to help everybody get a win. I often think that if someone isn't a good fit for the team, it's equally as damaging for them and their confidence and their career prospects as it is for the team. So to create a win-win, you need to help that person find a team that is that they're well suited for, and you need to find someone who's well suited for your team. It's like being married to the wrong person. It doesn't help anyone.
No, it doesn't, does it? I'm lucky there, I'm right.
No, so am I, but I'm saying that's what we know. And it's like being in the team with someone that doesn't work. It's not good for anyone in the team. It's not just that person. It's not good for anyone.
And the dynamics, you can have someone in the wrong dynamic. Can we put them in a different division or something like that?
Yeah.
But again, you need to, because if a company's young and they're effervescent, it's got to have like-minded people in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's got to be out, and if you've got someone that's, okay, you're not fitting, do you want to exit? That's fine. Have that strategy in there, and it's always harder for young businesses because they don't know the compliance rules. They don't know how to do it. They usually speak their mind, and then someone will say, "Oh, you can't do that." And it gets very. I mean, we got one at the moment. It's turning quite messy because of that.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's too late. So it all comes back to communicating, listening. That builds the team. Having the focus there, having your goals. Where are we going? What are we doing? How do we actually communicate and talk to each other? Come back here. We all agree this is how we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And it is so important. Listen to the people, support them.
Love it, love it. So on that very supportive note, Mr. Simon Lever, I think that it's been absolutely amazing to have you on the couch with me today, talking about team, how to recruit teams, how to lead teams, how to write the right ads, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you so much for sharing so generously all of your experience and knowledge. Is there anything else that you'd like to say just before we go?
No, I suppose at the moment, there's a lot of people out there looking for work and things like that.
Yeah.
Find the right sort of job you want, get attracted to it, research it, find out what it is. If you're in a position now where you don't feel appreciated and stuff like that, have a talk to someone. And then if it's in a business where they're not receptive to that, you need to weigh up, because it actually comes back to your home life.
It does.
Because if you're having stress and anxiety at work about everything, then you come back, because you find a good partner, if they've had a great day and you've had not a good day, they won't sit there and brag about it. They'll sit there and listen to you and then keep quiet. Well, you need that nice little mixture where you need to have both. So yeah, if it's not right, I know it's hard, but you need to find it, because we all need to put food on the table, and it's a matter of how we do that in the best way, to have that balance of work and family at the same time.
Absolutely. So Mr. Simon Lever, if someone wants to contact you directly to maybe get some advice or to talk to you about your services, how can they get hold of you?
They can just jump onto our website.
Yeah,
So,
which is what?
Cross APAC, so CROSSAPAC.com. That will drive into our main page, which has Cross Asia Pacific, which is split into two. So Cross APAC is to do with workplace health, safety, environmental, business structures, and then the recruitment side, Cross Recruit, looks after all the HR and recruitment, and where we can actually go into, because they work side by side. Because when you actually come into a business, a small business especially, you need a holistic approach on how you look after everything.
Fabulous, love it. The amazing Courtney has posted a link in the comments. I just wanted to acknowledge Courtney again. Thank you, Court, for being the person behind the scenes on our HubLives and for commenting and for posting all the links. You're amazing. So everybody, thank you very much for joining us today for our HubLive. Thank you, Simon.
No worries.
And we'll be back next Thursday at 1 o'clock, which I think we should talk about the 7 keys to a winning team, or a high-performing team. So if you are actually thinking about leading a team, recruiting a team, and you want some really, really practical how-to information, jump online next week at 1 o'clock for our HubLive, and I probably will be on the couch on my own talking about the 7 keys to a high-performing team. I'll see you then. Bye.
Okay, cheers.